Once upon a time, a sentence like, "let's meet at 3," was literally impossible. Because when there were no clocks, time wasn't a number, it was a feeling. The coolness of dawn, the scorch of noon, the lengthening of evening. But people couldn't live by feeling alone. The watch had to change. The harvest had to begin. Rituals had to be performed at the exact moment. So time, all of a sudden, turned into a social problem. And the world learned this. It's not enough to measure time. You have to agree on time. The first big move was turning the sun into a ruler. In Egypt, around 1500 BCE, imagine a simple L-shaped stone, marked with lines. You align it to the sun, and the shadow falls across those lines. Suddenly, the day can be divided. For the first time, time starts to look like something portable and shareable. But the sun has a small flaw. It doesn't care about humans. Clouds come. The shadow disappears. Night falls. The system shuts down. So the next step had one condition. It had to be independent of the sky. This is where time was brought indoors. In the language of flow, with water. Water clocks carried time drop by drop or by a rising level. They worked by day and by night. And in some cultures, time was measured directly with the senses. In China, during the Song Dynasty, there were incense clocks. You could smell time. A trail burns, reaches markers at certain intervals, and you understand that time has passed with your nose. Now stop. Before seeing time, hearing it, smelling it, feeling it. That alone was a shift in ideas. Then in China, things got bigger. Because for some, a clock wasn't just, what time is it? A clock was also the question, how is the sky turning? An early escapement idea attributed in sources to the year 725 later becomes a legacy in Susong's massive clock tower project. Susong's treatise, written in 1092, describes a world that combines hydraulic systems, mechanical assemblies, and astronomy into a single public machine, an authority and an engineering spectacle in the center of the city, working, showing the hours, making sounds, representing the heavens. Around the same time, in the Islamic world, timekeeping was taken to another level. Storytelling. In 1206, the water clocks described by al-Jazari didn't just want to be correct. They wanted to be alive. Moving figures, sounds, performances. Time wasn't flowing like a mechanism. It was flowing like a stage show. But there was still a problem. You're dependent on water. You have to build large systems, and it doesn't work everywhere. Then a break happens in Europe. We begin producing time. With the spread of the verge escapement in the late 1200s, weights and gears enter the picture. Now a clock doesn't need the sun, doesn't need water. With iron, weight, and controlled release, time is produced. These clocks aren't perfect. In fact, they often drift badly. But the revolution is this. Time breaks away from nature. And an interesting detail, the first clocks were mostly not visual. Sound taught time to people. Imagine a tower, no dial on its face, but it has a bell. It strikes on the hour. People begin to live the rhythm of the day according to the rhythm of the bell. There are early records around 1330 in Milan of striking the hours by counting. The great iron-framed clock at Salisbury is also thought to be around 1386. Even if the date is debated, the message is very clear. Early clocks weren't for personal comfort, they were for public order. Now think, time suddenly stops being a personal preference. It becomes a shared metronome dropped on society. Then the target changes. It should be heard by the town. Isn't enough. I should carry it. Begins. Mechanisms shrink. Springs come into play. And time turns into something owned. In your pocket. On your wrist. And once time becomes portable, expectation becomes portable too. Being late is no longer just being late. It becomes violating a standard. But true precision, it appears on stage in 1656. December 25th, 1656. Christian Huygens' idea of the pendulum clock dramatically increases accuracy. Now the minute hand isn't just decoration. The minute becomes a real promise. And this quietly changes the world. Science, measurement, production, appointment culture. Because once time can be sliced more finely, Life gets planned according to those slices. Then the ocean demands something. Not just the correct time, but the correct time while moving. Because if you want to find longitude at sea, one of the things you need to know is this. What tells me where I am is the correct difference in time. And this is where John Harrison's H4 comes in. Completed in 1759, this marine chronometer proves that something like a clock can be reliable despite the ocean's vibration and temperature changes. It's carried on a trial voyage toward Jamaica in 1761, and its performance shows that the solution to the longitude problem could be keeping time. So suddenly we realize time isn't just, what time is it? Time means where are you? So is the story over now? No, because in the 1800s, a new enemy appears. Networks, trains, telegraphs, intercity schedules, and a terrible truth. Every city has its own noon. What is 12 o'clock in one place can be 12:07 a few cities later, and trains collide by minutes. That's why standardization isn't a romantic, we all decided together moment. It's also a we were forced to moment. In Britain in 1880, legal texts tie the time reference to Greenwich Mean Time. In North America, railroads put time zones into practice on November 18, 1883, to end timetable chaos, and the International Meridian Conference in Washington, D.C. in 1884 focuses on recommending the Greenwich Meridian as zero. And there's another small twist here. Many people think the 1884 conference created time zones, but in practice, railroads imposed time zones first. The conference mostly solved the question, where should the zero line be? So what standardizes time is, often before science, infrastructure. Right here, the foundation of modern life is laid. Time becomes a global agreement. Then another shock. Time escapes from gears. In 1927 at Bell Labs, the idea of the quartz clock is born. The vibration of a crystal provides a far more stable heartbeat than mechanical balance wheels. Years later, on 25th of December 1969, the Seiko Quartz Astron launches and brings quartz accuracy down to the wrist. Then time appears on a screen, like a number, like a message. But even quartz isn't the finale, because the idea of the most accurate clock eventually moves to atoms. In 1949, the National Bureau of Standards, as it was then named, announces the first atomic clock working with an ammonia molecule. In 1955, the UK's National Physical Laboratory uses a cesium beam atomic clock as a calibration source. And in 1967, the world crosses a philosophical line. The second is now defined not by celestial bodies, but by the vibration count of the cesium-133 atom. But the Earth isn't an atom. The Earth's rotation drifts little by little. So on 30 June 1972, the first leap second is added to keep civil time from drifting too far from Earth's rotation. And now we've reached today. Even the clock on your wrist, the clock on your phone, the clock on your computer. The reason these look correct is that atomic time exists as a reference in the background. That's why systems like GPS use time not just to display it, but to calculate position. If time is wrong, your map of the world slides. Let's come to the final link. The watch returned to the wrist, but this time as an ecosystem. Seiko brings back the Astron name in 2012 with GPS synchronized watches. Apple introduces the Apple Watch on September 9th, 2014, and releases it for sale on April 24th, 2015, as a turning point that transforms the wrist from a time display into a sensor plus notifications plus health platform. And now, let's return to the sentence at the beginning. Let's meet at 3. Behind that sentence, there's a chain stretching from shadows to atoms. Time that began by reading nature, aligned society with towers, made the minute real with the pendulum, turned into location on the ocean, was forced into a standard by railroads, got cheaper with quartz, gained a definition with the atom, and today turned into an ecosystem on your wrist. So the story of clocks is actually telling this, not measuring time, but forcing people to live at the same time. Which was the biggest break in that chain, in your opinion? The pendulum the H4, or time zones? If you got something from this video, write this in the comments. Biggest break, giant, pendulum, H4, or time zones. And for this kind of big idea in one story videos, subscribe. In the next episode, tell me in the comments what topic of what changed the world and how you'd like.